Hey there, Chess for Closers, Dave Sherman here. I've got a couple endgame positions that I want to show. These are Andre Sharon creations. If you haven't heard the name Andre Sharon, he was Dvoretsky before Dvoretsky was Dvoretsky. He is French, and he had, I won't be able to pronounce it and I won't try, endgame book, uh, maybe more than one, I guess more than one, uh, wasn't ever translated into English. And for that reason, it was a prized possession of someone other than me. I never could get a hold of it. I guess they were pretty expensive. The only way to get them is Ken Smith, the poker player who used to sell chess books out of Texas. He used to dabble in these esoteric. You could get Shock Montney. You could get a subscription to Shock Montney Bulletin from Ken Smith. I just couldn't afford it, and couldn't read Russian. Couldn't read French either. But anyway, I got the Rolf Schwartz opening series, Skandinavische und Jugoslawische, Scandinavian center counter defense, which was my defense for many years, and then Yugoslavische, probably the Perk defense, although I never looked at that part of the book. Okay, so Andre Sharon here. Got two positions. I got this one, and then the second position is the same one, but with everything moved over one square. And that meaning the black king is on h5 on the side of the board. The solutions are different, but they're important. The concepts are important, I think. I remember the concept that's working here is Grigoriev's and not Andre Sharon's. I guess Sharon used Grigoriev's material to come up with this study. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure why Sharon gets credit for this. Anyway, the combined method is what Grigoriev called it. The problem is black has checking distance, and white needs to get his pawn up to d5 without it being taken. If he can manage that, the Lucena position will not be far off. But how does he do that? If he peeks his head out and tries to move ahead, black will just keep checking him back on the C file, on the E file, wherever he goes. And then whenever white's king is not defending his d pawn, black will return to d8, and white won't make any progress. Well, Grigoriev found a solution to this, and he named it the combined method. I never was clear what was being combined. But it consists of white moving his king 2 squares in front of his pawn, but diagonally in front. Here that would mean the b6 square. And so that's easy enough achieved. Black has to keep checking or attacking the pawn because he can't allow the pawn to move forward. And so now king to b6. And again, now if just king back to c5, we're repeating. But white has made enough progress. His king has started on d3, and now it's on b6. So he thinks he can let the black king in and defend the pawn. And here comes black's king to defend, but a little too late. Of course, king e7 loses the rook to a check on the e line. And if rook moves to d5, king c6, white has won the tempo he needs to get in d5, and again, Lucena is not far off. That's the combined method. And again, yeah, the computer has it down at, let's back it up to the beginning here. This is, yeah, the computer has this at +8 something, +9 now. So easy win. If you don't know the theory, you might not be able to figure it out. It's not so easy to me. I can imagine people, non-masters. I guess masters might be able to figure it out over the board, but maybe not. Let me show you this second position. And as I said, it's the same thing, but with things moved over to the starboard. Over. Get over there. And rook on g1. Okay, so let's see if this combined method works. Let's see if there's anything different. Does the D pawn now being an E pawn change things? It does. All right, let's try. Okay, you can't allow E5. And so we know the drill here. Again, king back to D5 repeats, so that's no good. Yeah, rook E1. The problem is, of course, black starts coming over. On king to D7, black takes advantage of the fact that this is an E pawn and not a D pawn. And that means that this is the long side of the pawn. And black has checking distance horizontally. And white will make no progress. Black will just keep checking him. So the combined method does not work. So let's back this up and let's set this position up again here. Okay, king here, and rook here. Okay, so the king's on the side of the board, a little more vulnerable, and so there should be a way to take advantage of that. Well, there is. The first move is rook to g2, and it'll be clear enough why. Well, there's not much else. I mean, the king moves aren't working, and so it's going to be a rook move. You can't break your blockade of the G line. And so, in fact, it was either rook to G2, rook to G3. Let's try rook to G2. Okay, the right move is king H4, and in the solution, they give this as an exclamation mark. So let's just look at... suppose black were to play king H6. Could there be a time where, again, remember, if white gets his pawn up to E5, he's going to win. Could white at some opportune time play king to F6, threatening mate, and also threatening to push his pawn? Or, even better, how about he could have already pushed his pawn, and when black takes it, maybe white could play king f6. I'm not exactly sure how that could happen. But at any rate, combining the threat to push the pawn and a mate threat, we got the germ of an idea here. So let's back it up. Okay, here we are in our original position, and I guess we have to load it again. So rook to g2. So let's try. Suppose black plays king h6. Now we're going to try the combined method again here. Threading e5, check. King here. Threading e5. King e6. Boom. And no answer has ever been found. Again, I guess if black throws in one more check, then king e7. The king is covering the queening square. He just pushes this pawn. This is Lucina, 7 days a week. So that's what happens if... Yeah, here we go. So rook to g2. So that's what happens if king to h6. White sort of pinpoints the f6 square at a later date. But king h4 is the right move. But why? Why can't white just play e5 and instead of the f6 square, use the f4 square, double attack, mate and rook? The problem is this move, king h3, draw. So let's back this up. Right, okay. But can you imagine that little motif that black has, which saved his bacon only because the rook was on g2? So, Let's try it again. Rook to g2. King here. Tempo. By the way, I should mention, all this time, if black ever moved his rook up along the e line, he loses his checking distance. And so then white moves his king up, and the combined method will work. Okay, so white tempos here. Black tempos. And now rook to g1. Again, if black goes to h6, we know the drill. White meanders up to f6 and threatens mate right after black takes the pawn on e4. Okay, so black can play here. Now e5. Again, if black can't take this pawn, we've got Lucena. He takes it, king f4, and now there is no defense. There is no king h3 hitting the rook. So the similarities are there. When black's king is on the side of the board, you can combine the threat of getting the pawn to the fifth rank, which always wins. That's always going to result in a Lucena position with mate. And I guess the other point is that a defense for black is using the long side of the pawn and checking distance to draw, except when you're threatened with mate. Okay, so this was pretty short, but I think these were they're sort of matched. They're matched naturally, and I also want to make sure that Nikolai gets credit for his combined method. If you see it in the book attributed to Sharon, he used Grigoriev's analysis to create this. More endgame theory to come, and other stuff. And I'd like to hear some reports back from the old Indian wars. I want to hear that people are playing the old Indian and beating people that outrate them by 300 points, which is what happened to me. And by the way, it still happens. I beat a 2400 in less than 30 moves with this old, more than once in the last few weeks. So keep those letters coming, and like and subscribe, and check me out next time on Chess for Closers. See ya.